Hello, good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are. It's good to have you all on board. Maruf, how are you? Good afternoon. And Nanny, how are you? Julius,
Good afternoon.
good afternoon. Conley, it's
All right.
good to see you.
Good
Yeah,
afternoon.
good afternoon. Mubarak, Terry,
Yeah, good afternoon.
Francisco, good afternoon. And thank you all for making it to this particular session. I know there must be some O and Bs right there, but at the same time, it's good to have you here, to pick one or two nuggets with respect to our career design. Um, yes, so my name is Temi Tope. So I'll be anchoring this session, and guest speaker is right here. Catherine is right here. But before I welcome him, welcome her on board, please do let me read a profile to us. Catherine Agaga. She graduated from OAU in 2006 with a bachelor's in agric economics. She moved to Canada right after school in 2007, holds business analysis certificate from University of Toronto, MBA from Laurentian University, Scrum Master certified, Scrum Product Owner certified, Lean Six Sigma Green Belt certified. She began her career in insurance as a frontline underwriter, where she got an early exposure to innovation by helping test Canada's first digitized auto insurance application, an experience that sparked our passion for business analysis. During maternity leave with her twin daughters, she made a bold pivot into the field, completing a business analysis boot camp and furthering her education at the University of Toronto. This led to a successful consulting career with Deloitte, where she spent nearly 5 years honing her craft. She later joined one of Canada's Big Five banks, where she quickly progressed from lead business analyst to business architect, then senior manager, and most recently into a director role, helping establish and grow a business architecture practice. Known for her strategic mindset, she has led large-scale transformation initiatives, introduced business architecture capabilities across business units, and developed multi-year roadmaps to support key banking priorities. She's passionate about strategic growth and helping others carve their own paths, especially those looking to break into business analysis, grow within the practice, or successfully pivot their careers. Outside of work, she enjoys spending quality time with her three kids, whether it's skating, biking, swimming, baking, or playing board games. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on board with me, Catherine Agaga. Catherine, the floor is yours now.
Hi, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for that introduction, Doctor. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can hear you from here.
Okay, perfect. I'm actually very excited to be on this episode of IIBA series, career series, and thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I have known Talkway for over 3 decades now. We went to school together, so it's been a long time coming. We've kind of been on our career journey as BAs together before I got into business architecture. So thank you for that brief introduction. I will be sharing a lot from my experience, how I navigated the career path as a BA, and even prior to becoming a BA, and where I'm at the moment, and also how I have helped some of my mentees. So I do career coaching, volunteering a lot, and I also do career coaching as a side business. And over the last, I can say since 2017, I have helped quite a couple of people. It started as a passion and something that I just enjoyed being an immigrant here. One of the first things that I opened my eyes to here as an immigrant when I first tried to navigate the waters in Canada is I observed that as immigrants, a lot of us have a lot of credentials, a lot of dedication, a lot of passion for what we do. However, what we do lack is the ability to sell ourselves. And so that was where my desire to help people started from. Every organization I've worked in, I've volunteered. I've worked with Access Career here in Canada. It's a division that helps immigrants. We do mentorship. We do skill, what I call skilled assessment. So resume structuring. And even when I work with Deloitte, I did the same thing. Currently with CIBC, I'm fairly new with CIBC where I work at the moment. And I'm yet to discover the team that actually focuses on that. But in a nutshell, volunteering my skills and helping others achieve their career dreams is something that I do enjoy a lot because I love to see people succeed. So that being said, a lot of the things I will be sharing here are honestly practical examples that have worked for me and that I've also applied to my mentees that have helped people to navigate their career. So hopefully you'll be able to gain a thing or two from it. Now, before I dive right into it, I'm going to share a link in the chat. And basically, I want to take a poll of to understand the audience that is here today. So first, where are you dialing from? Also, I want to understand, are you in the BA role? If you're currently in the BA role, how long have you been a BA for? And do you fully understand your next role? It's just 3 questions. Please feel free to go ahead and answer the questions while we get started here. So, and Talkware direct me. I want to share a deck. Let me just make sure I can share the deck I have here. And let me know when you're able to see. Are you able to see what I'm sharing? Talkware, I think I see something else. It's spinning on my end here, so I don't know if you're able to see. You're able to see?
Yes, I can see. Yeah.
Okay. I have something else covering my screen here, which I don't know if you guys are seeing it from your end or not.
I can see
No?
it from my end.
You see what I'm sharing? Nothing is covering
Yeah.
my screen. Okay. That's something else.
Yeah, but there is something covering it.
Yeah, it's that's what okay, let me close that. Perfect. So now you can see my deck? Oh no. Do you see my deck now?
Yes, yes,
Okay,
yes.
perfect.
Thank you.
So today we're here to talk about owning a career. How do you position yourself for your next role? While let me take a quick look at the poll, and I just want to have an understanding of the people I have here before I go ahead and then we can talk about it. I can see my poll. That's fine. Okay, I can check the poll here. Or maybe just a quick show of hands, like how many people, what is the general audience? If you can put it in the chat, what is the general audience knowledge of business analysis? How many of us have been in the role of business analyst and for how long? So usually I'm looking at a range of either less than 5 years, between 5 and 7 years, or more than 7 years. And just because I'm sharing here, Talkware, you can let me know once that is on, if everyone can put that on the chat. So while
All
we're
right.
doing that, I know Talkware introduced me briefly. One thing I want to talk about is kind of like how I got to where I am today. So I graduated from OAU 2006, and as you know, for those of us that are in Nigeria or grew up in Nigeria, we all know sometimes the limitation with JAMB and GCE and all those things when you're trying to get into university. I come from a background of scientists in my household, so I originally wanted to be a medical doctor. Fast forward to JAM, of course, that did not happen. And I got into agricultural economics. Actually, my first try of JAM, I took the JAM when I was in SS2, and that was the JAM that I used to get into OAU. I didn't go back to take any other JAM, but my cutoff at the time was not the same. Like, I couldn't meet the cutoff for medicine, obviously, but I didn't want to go back and do JAM. So my option was to get into the university and see if I could cross after a couple of years, which unfortunately, the year I entered OAU, my second year in OAU, that was the year the Faculty of Agriculture decided that no, a lot of people use them as kind of like what I would call a stepping stone into other departments. And they put an embargo and nobody was able to cross. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to cross to medicine when I wanted to. And the third year, I still tried to do JAMB. I wanted to go to UniBen, but again, it didn't happen. And eventually, I kind of just embraced it and said, okay, maybe this is my journey. Let me graduate. And then we think of what to do after that. At the time, my mom moved abroad. And then I started to consider that, okay, after Nigeria, maybe I can travel and still study medicine. Long story short, I moved here, and the goal of studying medicine was just not in view. For some reasons, there were so many factors, funding, and so many things that prevented me from going into that. So I kind of just dived into the career, insurance career, and I started my journey. I had a plan B, and my plan B was to become a banker because I said, okay, if I'm not able to study medicine, maybe that is the next line of career that I will want. Again, unfortunately, at the time, when I moved here, Canada was such a way that when you are looking into the financial industry, you do have to have a credit history, kind of similar to what they're looking for if you're looking to apply for a mortgage or you're looking to apply for financing for a vehicle. And because of that, again, it made it difficult for me to get into banking, even though I wanted banking so much. So again, another detour. I did take the banking and mutual funds exam at the time. I think it took me 2 years to take the exam, and I got a certification. Obviously, that certification was not useful for me when I eventually got into insurance industry, and I was working as a frontline underwriter, but I quickly moved from there to become a supervisor for a call center, same industry. And then I moved into quality analyst role. I think that was where I got a little closer to the BA role. And as I was working as a quality analyst, I worked with a few BAs and a few underwriters. And I was lucky enough that I had a manager who noticed my potentials and put me on what they call a leadership program. And the leadership program gave me exposure to many things. So basically, what the leadership program was all about is it gives you exposure to every department. So you work with HR, you work with underwriters, you work with claims, and you kind of just have a general knowledge, basically preparing you for a future of becoming a manager at the company. So that exposure was an eye opener for me. They were looking into me becoming a manager, but I think that exposure exposed me to something else and even outside and beyond the insurance industry. One of the things I realized working with HR, I think that was the most experience that I really enjoyed in the leadership program. I worked with HR to sort resumes and kind of like identify qualified candidates. And then gradually they moved me to helping to actually sit down and interview. So I had the experience of sitting on the opposite side of the table at this time, not as a candidate, but as an interviewer interviewing candidates. And I did that for about a year and a half. And that was I think that was the point that I got this calling and this passion to help other people succeed. I quickly realized at the time, even as an immigrant, very new here in Canada, I quickly realized that immigrants work like double time that other people put into to get our credentials, to get qualified. And we have a lot of qualifications and so much dedication for our work, but then we don't get the value for all that effort we put in. And simply because of one reason. The reason being that we lack the ability to sell ourselves. We don't have the ability to market ourselves. And so sometimes you pick up a resume, there's a lot of credentials on it, but when you speak to the person, that confidence is not there. So that was the first calling for me getting into the knowledge of wanting to help people. And so I started to volunteer. Fast forward a few years later, this exposure that I had to hiring actually helped me with my own resume to get into Deloitte. So anyways, long story short, what made me to move out of the insurance industry was that I got an opportunity to test an application that they launched. It was the first digital application for auto insurance. At the time, a lot of organizations were doing paper application, which took like 30 days. Very daunting. And then my company at the time launched the first digital form that reduced the whole process to 3 days for people who were applying to insurance. And I had the opportunity to test. I was part of the user acceptance testing at the time, but back then I didn't even know what I was doing because I didn't have exposure to the business analyst world, but I knew I was called to test. And that was the first close experience I had working closer to developers and working with business analysts. And then fast forward like a year after that, I was pregnant of my first child, and a friend of mine talked to me about business analysis. She was reporting to me at the time, and she said, I found out about this role. I think you're going to love it. And she's like, when you come back from maternity leave, I'm not going to be here because this is what I want to be. I tossed the thought aside because at the time I was already having a career path for myself in the insurance industry. After having that exposure, I thought I had a good chance of becoming a manager and maybe becoming an underwriter. But other things happened that kind of led to me. It was like the push that I really needed. And I'm going to talk about this as we talk about some of the other points in this deck. Sometimes we do need a push. And even if everybody tells you about something, sometimes you don't take action until something forces you to take action. So what forced me to take action was the company wasn't really nice to me when I was pregnant. The doctor said I needed some time as a pregnant woman to take breaks in between work, and they weren't really kind enough to offer me the breaks when I needed it. So anyways, I had my son, went on maternity leave, and when my son was about 6.5 months, we found out that we were expecting a set of twins, so back to back. And so instead of me returning to work, it was like, now I'm going to have a second maternity leave. My company wasn't having it, so I did go back to work, and I also needed the money at the time. So I went back to work, and then I requested for maternity leave after that when the twins were due. So going on maternity leave, we quickly realized that we moved from a family of 2 to a family of 5 in just 2 years or even 1.5. It was pretty fast and it was scary. So the question became, how do we provide for this family of 5 and make sure we're comfortable and be able to afford life? So that was my biggest point, and I think that was the why that pushed me, because I quickly realized that the 45,000 I was making at that time was not going to help with the family of 5 that we now had. So I was determined to find the details my friend gave me, and I was like, I'm not going back to this company. One, for the fact that I do need more income. Secondly, the fact that they didn't really treat me well based on the 6.5 years that I had already put into the company. So at the time, I had a strong why. That was my push. So when I went on maternity leave, eventually, my kids were about 2.5 months. The girls were about 2.5 months when I subscribed to a business analysis boot camp. It was a 4-month accelerated program, all compressed schedule, just to make you have exposure to business analysis, and then enough for me to be able to go out and apply for a job. And I remember that right after the program, like I was so dedicated that even the instructor said, it says sometimes when you're taking our classes, we can tell the people that will get their first job on this, like in this class, based on their dedication. I was really dedicated because I was determined. So sometimes I do tell people it's about how much do you want it. If you really want something, we put all the energy and effort you have into it. And of course, with God's blessings, if you're a Christian and you believe in that, like you just pray that your efforts will be fruitful. So I was dedicated, putting all the time and energy. And right after the course ended, I applied. I remember sending out 27 applications, 27 within 1 month. And I was checking and monitoring every day. Out of those 27 applications, only 2 companies called me back. So it was Yellow Pages and Deloitte. And that was like within the first month. At the time, it was already August-ish, and my maternity leave was supposed to end by October. So I was supposed to go back to work October 6, 2013. And after all said and done, I got a call back from Deloitte, but Yellow Pages was slow, and I did 5 interviews. Out of the 5 interviews, my exposure and my experience to hiring and all of that helped me to, one, structure my resume, because that experience gave me exposure to know what employers are really looking for. And I think that was really what helped me to ace my resume, my interview, because I had sat across the table to interview people. I had worked with HR for about 1 year, doing the same thing. So I kind of knew what the recruiters were looking for. So it helped me to go through my interview successfully, and I got the role. Was I the best candidate? Probably not, because in all honesty, when I was in OAU, Deloitte would come and recruit people who are first class candidates and things like that. So I did have my eyes on Deloitte, but I was more focused on studying medicine. But fast forward to moving here, when I got here and I was looking into getting into banking, it was actually part of my career progression. I said, if I don't get into banking, I want to get into the Big Four. So when I started applying, I didn't just throw out applications to every company and every Tom, Dick, and Harry that was out there. I was very strategic, and I was very focused on what I wanted. So long story short, I got the role, and hence how my business analysis career really, really started. So when I started at Deloitte, I was fairly new. It was all a little bit of experience at the insurance industry, but a lot of theoretical knowledge of the things I studied. And it was while at Deloitte that I went back to school to get a formal training again, because I wanted a certification. CBAP was going to take some time because they required me to have some hours and experience. I wasn't ready to go through that long route. So when I contacted University of Toronto, they had a partnership with CBAP to offer CBAP curriculum. And then they give you that certification, which is equivalent to that. And if you wanted to do CBAP afterwards, you could still go ahead and do CBAP. So I did kind of like a postgraduate diploma with U of T, which was about 2 years while I was working at Deloitte. And it was also while I was working at Deloitte, because Deloitte has partnership with Harvard. I was also able to take a program in project management with Harvard University. So long story short, that was how I got into business analysis. So, but as we go on, I will talk about later on in my career some of the things that you can also find very useful and applicable as you move on. So, number one, how do you decide on your next move, and how do you own your career? I would say, in order to own your career, it's solely your responsibility. Trust me, there could be managers, there could be people you work with and stuff, but ultimately you hold the pen on your career. You have to design it however you want it to look, and you have to be committed to progressing in it. And the number one thing I want folks to understand is that your career journey is not linear. A lot of the time, people think career journey is a straight line. I'm going to start from point A and I'm going to end up at point B, and it's not just going to be a smooth sailing. But it's not always a smooth sailing. There could be detours. Sometimes there could be moving just laterally in a role for some time. You could move up. You could even take a step back, depending, because sometimes family situations happen and you see people that, I'm just looking for an income right now. I want to be focused on my family. I want to focus on my kids. And you see people, they'll take a step down role just so they can satisfy that desire. Does it mean they have failed? No. I do not like to refer to missed opportunities or detours as failure, because that's also another mindset that sometimes people need to check. I don't believe in failures. I believe in opportunities to grow. And I also believe in learning experience. So if we plan something and it doesn't happen the way it has been planned, it doesn't mean you have failed. Simply view it as a learning experience and maybe an opportunity you're yet to discover, a deferred opportunity. It's not happening now, but it's going to happen someday. And it's probably just sometimes God making you to go through a particular experience just so you can gain something. And a very good example of that is the exposure to hiring that I had. I never knew that exposure was going to be useful. When I was put on that program, I was just focused on I want to become a manager. Little did I know, like in 100 years, I would never have thought that sitting down and having some program with HR was beneficial in my career. I didn't want to be HR. I never studied anything to be HR. So even when they put me and they were like, oh, you're going to do some months with HR, I was like, okay. And in all honesty, I did not get to go to the other department. I was supposed to go to claims and spend time with claims. I did spend time with quality assurance. My mind was so focused on claims because I thought I'm either going to be an underwriter or I'm going to be a claims adjuster and then go back to school and maybe do data scientist and become an actuarist because they actually do make good money. Anything data science, if you become an actuarist in the insurance industry, they do make quite fairly amount of money compared to the other roles. So when I was asked to join HR and work with HR, in all honesty, grudgingly, I was a little upset because I'm like, this is wasting my time. This is not where I want to go. I want to go have all the experience with underwriting and have all the experience with claims, not HR. And that was the department that I actually spent most of the time with. And I ended up not going to the other department before I left the company. It was meant to be a 3 month with HR. They kept me for a year and a half, and I was helping them with hiring and making offers. But again, it was a deferred blessing in disguise because that role and that exposure actually got me one of the best role of my life, which is still like the best experience on my resume. And I can tell you for a fact that that exposure to Deloitte paved a lot of ways for me in my career today. Like it did help me with the other companies I've worked with so far. So never view an opportunity as a waste of time. Just view it as a deferred opportunity, like a deferred experience that maybe you don't know what you're gaining from it yet, but at some point it will be useful to you in your life. No knowledge is lost. And I say careers are built. It's not very predictable sometimes, but as you go along the way, enjoy the journey and just make sure that you're learning and gaining the experience along the journey. Whenever you're going to use it, even if you're not clear on when it's going to become useful, just enjoy it along the way as you go. Number two, I would say lean into your first exposure. Your first exposure could pave way to so many things. And again, back to the Deloitte example, I kind of said something about working in the insurance industry. When I look at the connection between working in the insurance industry and Deloitte and where I am right now, some of them are not exactly connected. It's like different industries. I worked in professional services, I worked in banking, I worked in insurance. However, there is always transferable skills. You just have to look deeply into these transferable skills and ask yourself, what is the knowledge I have gained so far on this role? And how can I take that and use it for my next role? So be very curious with every opportunity you're given. See it as your first exposure, tap into it, maximize it, gain all the knowledge that you can gain while you're on that role, and enjoy all the exposure. Don't be on the role grudgingly, even if it's volunteering. And I give you an example. Some of us moved here, and sometimes the only thing you can get first is volunteering your skill set, even before you start making money. And sometimes I have heard of people that I mentor that actually gained a lot of knowledge and exposure while they were volunteering. Yes, you could sit back and be like, do this work so grudgingly by saying, after all, I'm not getting paid. So it's not my father's company. Why do I want to be so dedicated? But one thing I always tell people is that anything worth doing at all is worth doing well. And if you put that, if you let that be your guiding principle, I kid you not, like people who see your dedication and who value it, someday will reward you. And you'll be so surprised how much people are actually watching and people are actually noticing how much dedication you put into your work. That is one thing my mom has taught me. And I remember when I interviewed at Deloitte and the director asked me and was like, why do you like being a BA? What is it about this role that you like? And then because at the time, Deloitte sold the role to me as work from home. That was the first time ever I was ever working from home. I have never worked from home before. And they basically told me that the person that was on the role for 6 months left because they felt like they didn't know what they were doing because it was a remote role. The partner I was reporting to at the time lived in Vancouver. I live in Toronto. So he only came to the office once in 2 months, and I would go in for my performance review and my one-on-ones, and that would be it. I was working with a client in Australia and in India and US and Canada. So I didn't really have to go into the office. And one of the questions she asked me is that, why do you think you will do well on this role? Because this role is fully remote. You have not worked remotely before and you're young. So she's like, I find that a lot of young people like to work closely with their co-workers and colleagues so they can learn from them and also know when they're making a mistake. And I told her, I'm like, look, it doesn't really matter to me if the person is in the moon or space. As a business analyst, your work is to make other people's life easier, to make their life faster, whether you're like building efficiency into a system or you're building a simple system or you're automating something and moving it from manual process to like an automated process, you are making somebody's life better. So I told her that that's all I live for. And it doesn't matter to me if I have to do that in the office or I have to do it from home. I enjoy doing it and I want to keep doing it. So I'm like, for me, I live by one principle. Anything worth doing at all is worth doing well. So if this role requires me to come into the office, you will see me in the office every day. If it requires me to work from home, so be it. I will be focused and make sure I'm committed to the company goal of delivering wherever you want me to deliver. It doesn't matter if it's working from home or not. And I think if you have that guiding principle for your everyday life, that everything you do or you're asked to do, or you have the opportunity of contributing to, you do it with your full mind and make sure that you're doing it well and not just grudgingly. And that is going to, even if you don't get the reward in the immediate, I believe at some point the universe rewards you for the good work you put into anything you do. So number 3, I say see reinvention as a career strategy and not a setback. And this was an example that I gave about failures. I don't like using the term failures. Sometimes people think that to be successful, they don't like to refer to failure. But one thing people don't know is that it's part of the package. If you don't fail, you cannot be successful. I always tell people that you are not able to define success unless you experience failure. It's almost like you need to experience both sides to be able to know what is success. So in order to define success, you actually have to understand what success is versus what failure is. And that's how you're able to define success. And I don't think people become successful unless they have failed before. It's like a normal course of life. You have to go through that first. And then at the end, once you go through it, you don't go over it. You literally have to go through failure. You can't skip it over. You go through it, get to the end, and that's when you can say, wow, I'm finally successful in this thing. So I always tell folks it's part of the package. The only difference is that I don't like to call it failure. I like to call it opportunities, learning opportunities, development. That's what I like to call it, not necessarily failure. And I also like to call it sometimes detours. Detours happen. Just because you have 3 years planned for something doesn't mean 3 years is going to happen. It's going to happen eventually if you put your mind to it and you don't give up, because that's really what makes it. But it might not happen within the timeline that you have predicted. Does that mean that you have failed? No, it doesn't mean you have failed. It's just, and does that mean you should stop being strategic? No, because if you are not strategic, you're not going to get to that place in the first place. It is your strategies that lead you to your end goal at the end of the day. However, sometimes we don't have control over the timelines. Timelines could vary based on several factors, things going on in our lives, in the economy, and even where you live, or things like maybe you need to make a little adjustment to accommodate other things going on in your life. It could be economical factors, so many things. Like the only thing we have control over is our motivation and determination. How determined are you to get to this end goal? And how motivated are you? And yes, we can get other people to motivate us. We can get other people to inspire us. But I always say, you are your own best cheerleader. If you don't believe in yourself I think this is one of the things that makes it harder for a lot of us to achieve our goals. Sometimes, even if everybody's telling you you can do it and you don't believe in yourself, I'm not going to lie to you, it's not going to happen. So some of the reinventions and kind of like the things that to me seem like a setback to me. When I got pregnant back to back of my kids, and I know a lot of women probably experience this. Maternity leave sometimes can sort of put you far away. Here in Canada, maternity leave is a whole year. And actually right now it's 18 months is what I'm hearing. And then we share it with the husbands. If your spouse decides to take some time from it too, sometimes some men give the woman the whole 18 months. But the whole idea of moving from 12 months to 18 months is now they give opportunity for spouses to also share in it so that the dad can also share in this experience and take some time off and be home with the baby too. And so when I had my maternity leave back to back, I was so terrified. I thought that my career was going to take a back seat. And then we started to have conversations of whether I should become a full-time mom and taking care of kids. And if you know Canada, daycare is extremely expensive. And at the time, what made sense for me was to look for another job. I'm like, I tried staying home for 1 month, but it wasn't going to work for me. And I just thought to myself, this stay home mom is not my thing. I'm probably going to go crazy. And so I thought to myself that however we have to double this income, we have to. I'm going to have to go back to work and we're going to have to pay for daycare, however we're going to do it. And so that was the opportunity that I took during my maternity. I could have spent my maternity leave just coasting and spending time with the kids, but sometimes you have to be realistic. I'm a realist, so I don't like being delusional and having wishful thinking of something that I know cannot happen. I knew I wasn't going to stay home and I knew our income at the time was not going to cut it. So we started to look for options and we kind of motivated each other. And our only way was us going back to school. So like he went back and took project and kind of like added degrees to his and think of what he could do. I went back and thought of what I could do at that time too. So I leveraged my maternity leave to go back to school and totally had a change of career. And that was how I dived into the business analysis eventually. And also, that was not the only part. Further into my career too, after I left Deloitte, I joined TD Bank. So I finally found myself in the banking sector where I've always wanted to be, which is why sometimes I say it's all about how much you want something. Even if it doesn't happen in the immediate, it might eventually happen, provided you still keep chasing it. So after 5 years at Deloitte, I thought to myself, I wanted to experience the banking industry. And also the reason I left Deloitte was because I couldn't see more opportunities for me because I was the youngest person on the team. A lot of the people I worked with who were like project managers and directors were people who had wealth of experience, like 30 something years of experience. I saw that before I could move it, and a lot of them were on the road. They haven't even moved for years. So I wasn't seeing any opportunity for myself. And again, this is part of me saying, being strategic in where you want to go and really knowing what you want. And if you're at a place and if that thing is not happening for you, then you need to start planning your plan B and say, what is the next thing for me? I always advise that every time you get into a role, personally for me, when I'm moving into a new role, I'm giving myself 2 years. 2 years for me to get a promotion. If the promotion is not happening, I have to start looking either within the company or I have to start looking out. The only reason I stayed with Deloitte for 5 years was because one, Deloitte is a very reputable company. And as a consultant within Deloitte, you get to experience you work on different projects, you work with different clients. So it wasn't like I was focused on just one project or one role. So I found it very interesting because we had to work with different folks. And then but at a point, once I realized that I wasn't moving to that next step, it was it for me. And then I started to think of my next step. And banking was my next step. And that was why I moved into banking. When I joined banking, I joined as a lead business analyst. They were having a replatforming of their Salesforce, their sales and credit platform. They were moving from the old system they had into Salesforce. And that was the reason I took up that role because I got early exposure to Salesforce while I was working at Deloitte. So when the opportunity came for me to actually work within a team that was replatforming and launching their first instance of Salesforce, I thought that was a great opportunity for me as a lead BA. So I took the role. So not only was it really carved into where I wanted to go because I wanted to get more knowledge and experience and exposure to Salesforce, it was also more money because at the time I was planning to get an MBA. When I finished from OAU, I didn't really have a clear direction on where my career was going to go. A lot of my classmates went ahead and they did master's degree and stuff, but I did not. The reason was because I was not clear on where my career was going. I knew I wanted to study medicine. It didn't happen when after I moved here. So there was no need doing a master's degree because I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know where I was going to do master's in. But once I got into Deloitte and I started to see that my career was going where I wanted it, I knew I wanted an MBA, not a master's degree, because my goal was I wanted to be a VP and executive someday, whatever part I find myself. Once I got into business analysis, I had my mind on either be an executive product owner or be a project manager or be a scrum master. But I didn't know where I was going to go there. I was like, is either I take my agile career somewhere or I get into project management. But long story short, I had all these three options. So I knew an MBA was what was going to be appropriate, not a master's degree, because it's master's degree wasn't really, if you're looking into an executive role, an MBA is probably much better for you then because MBA takes you through all the different, it's all about managing a business and you need to go through all the different areas of managing a business, whether it's technology, accounting, budgeting, all of that. You take all those courses. So I started to focus on my mind on going for an MBA. So when I left Deloitte, I wanted to make sure I have enough income to be able to fund my MBA. Hence the reason I moved from Deloitte to the banking sector. And when I moved, I did actually negotiate a very good income to be able to cover my MBA loan. So again, that was a strategic move because I knew I needed that. So fast forward to when I was at TD, it got to a point that the work was really tedious and there was so much going on in the home front and work and kids that I wasn't able to juggle everything at the same time. So I took a 4 month leave. And when I took that 4 month leave, actually the advice from my doctor was to take a leave from everything and just stay home and rest because I was really struggling. And which takes me back to the point that sometimes things happen in your life that you have to make changes. You get detours. Some detours are intentional, some are not. They are just things that you have to do because you have to figure out some other aspects of your life. So I did take that 4 month break and I was just going to shelf everything and stay home. But then I thought to myself that it was probably the best opportunity for me to make sure I do more credit and finish up my MBA. Because at the time, I had already put 2 years into my MBA and I was rounding up. So I wasn't sure if I was going to defer that semester and just rest or not. But after I long thought about it, consideration, I thought, you know what? I'm home 4 months. Why don't I just focus on this MBA and get it done with? And by the way, one thing I forgot to mention is that I took advantage of my MBA during COVID. When everything was shut down, we were working from home. I thought it was the best opportunity ever. So again, it's about being strategic and taking advantage of some time in your life because sometimes we are always looking for the right time, the perfect time. It's also about recognizing that time. There might never be a perfect time, but are there opportunities in your life that you can take advantage of to kind of achieve that degree, to take that next steps you've been meaning to take? Because sometimes some of us are not rich enough to just say, oh, I'm going to abandon work now and go do MBA for full-time 2 years and do executive MBA without earning income. If you can afford it, by all means. But again, if it's not possible, then it's about looking for opportunities in your life and where can you take time to do more or gain more knowledge and more experience. So I took that 4 months and I went head on and I took all the credit. I kind of did way more than I was taking every semester. And I used that opportunity to finish my MBA and I graduated. When I went back to work, usually when you take a leave from work, sometimes it can count against you. So it's like if other people are being considered for promotion, you're probably not considered. You are like not the best person. And sometimes it might just really take a while before you are considered. Even your bonus and everything, sometimes it affects it. So at the time I was doing my MBA, I was already promoted to be a business architect. It's one thing I forgot to mention in this story. I was promoted to a business architect about I think 11 months or so after working as a lead BA with TD. And that's because one of the managers I worked with, because I was always proactive to volunteer my services, somebody observed and said, oh, you always think very strategically. And it's like, I think you're going to make a business architect instead of actually being a BA. I have never considered business architecture. But again, sometimes you do need to view yourself from other people's lenses, because it is really people who see you that know what you're capable of sometimes. Because sometimes our assessment of ourselves may not be the exact right thing. Sometimes it might just be things that are in our head and you're like, oh, I see myself as a good project manager. But are you really a good project manager? Somebody else looking at you might be like, I think you would do better as a quality analyst or software engineer or whatever. So sometimes it's good to listen to people's feedback, because you actually might be choosing like the right career path or the next career path for yourself when you listen to other people versus you just being focused on where you want to go. So it was my first time ever considering business architecture when the person mentioned it, and I was like, okay. So I went home that day and I started to research what exactly is business architecture, and I looked into it and I saw that it's actually a very good next move from business analysis. As a business analyst, you work more focused on the project that you're working on. Here is the project, and usually you concern yourself mostly with just that project. When you become a business architect, you're looking just beyond the project. At this point, you're working more with management level. It's more like an internal consultant role, and you're working more with leadership level and focusing more on strategies than individual projects. You're looking more at portfolios. So for example, if you're as a business architect, if you're put on a project, you're not just on focus on that application you're rolling out. It's about you looking into the organization entirely to say, okay, we're rolling out this application in, I don't know, let's say onboarding the client, for example. You're going to be looking at how that onboarding piece affects every other piece in the organization. Okay, which other process crosses paths with onboarding? You'll be looking into different applications that actually work with this application and having more of like a broad eye view and the big picture. And then you go back to the management team and make recommendations or give them advice to say, by the way, you're focused on onboarding, but you might also want to consider servicing and payment and billing and this and this and that, because they all touch onboarding at this point. And so you have to be looking at this whole process end to end. When we roll out this application, how is it going to impact everything else? Should we be considering also making changes in all these places? And so when you give leadership that informed, like that kind of information, they are more informed to make a better decision to say if it really makes sense to roll out this application at this time, or are they going to hold it off and wait until they can roll out something end to end that cuts across, I don't know, onboarding, servicing, billing, and everything else. So that's kind of like in a nutshell the difference between business architecture and business analysis. But a lot of the time, as a business analyst, an experienced business analyst, it is actually one of the best roles that you can pivot into the next role. If you notice the poll, I did ask about product owner, project manager, business architect. These are kind of the roles that I feel like as a business analyst, they are like your next best role to start considering leadership. Because a lot of the time when you remain in a business analyst role, you constantly remain in that role that, I don't know if most of you have seen it in most organizations, but business analysis is not necessarily at executive level. Sorry, somebody has a question? Yeah. So I don't know if most of you have noticed it, but business analysis role is not necessarily like at an executive role. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong. It all depends on your career strategy and where you want to see yourself. If you see yourself at the executive role as your next move, then it's probably time to start looking beyond the business analyst role and start thinking of all these other different. You can be an executive product owner by starting to be a product owner first. You can be an executive by starting to be a business architect first, and you can head a practice. You can be a scrum master and take your agile, or even now that people are getting into scaled agile, you can be a solution trained engineer, and you can take your career from there and get so that at least you're pivoting your next role and preparing yourself for that executive role. So that was how I took advantage of the 4 months. After completing my MBA, so while I was in the business architect role, one thing that got me into the business architect role is like I took another opportunity. There was somebody on my team who the mother-in-law was going through terminal disease and was given about a month and a half to leave. So she had to travel home and stay with the mother-in-law before she finally passed on. She was a business architect on my team. So that role became available, and I quickly volunteered myself. I told my boss I was going to step into that role, and that was what gave me exposure to business architecture role. So again, it's about taking opportunities. Wherever you find opportunities, take an opportunity. Sometimes you might not really get paid for it at the time. It could be a secondment job. It could be you volunteering yourself to actually do more within the organization you're in. So that was my first exposure to business architecture. I stepped into that role and I was able to help them. I shadowed someone and I was able to help them with some of the projects they were working on at the time. So the things we see sometimes as like a career break, I always tell people your career break could be your career breakthrough. Don't think because I'm taking time off, because I'm on maternity leave, my career is going to suffer. Use that break as your breakthrough. Think of the things that you can achieve even before you come back from the maternity leave, so that when you come back, you're coming back strong. It's like nothing was missing. That's one of the things that I will take from my experience that I say you can learn on. Number 4, build credibility with continuous learning. Sometimes people say, oh, experience is good. It's not just credentials. I would say experience and credentials, because sometimes people feel like, oh, I have the experience and that's it, it should help me. Yes, maybe it's good, but honestly, in this economy, the world is becoming more and more competitive. And honestly, even with the ATS that recruiters use these days, those ATS systems are looking for credentials. So sometimes there's a few things that check marks that you need to meet for that your next role. I always say research the next role that you're considering and ask yourself, what do I need to get there? And how do I get there? And we're going to talk about the how and the what. The what is what we're focused on now. I always say anyone can claim to have raised the dead, but if you have something to show for it, proof. It's always good. Like when I took the boot camp I took was not really like a recognized certification. They just taught me the business analyst role and I moved through it, and that was it. I needed something more substantial to be able to show for it. So, and 4 walls of a school, some learning, some certification added to that. And usually I think it makes it faster for you to get to your next role versus you just saying, I have this experience. Because when push comes to shove and they're looking between you and somebody else who has just experience, that credentials by your name is what is going to prove to them that this person has a formal learning. And I always say, if you can afford it, pick a school or at least a certification that is recognizable. CIBA, something that is like global or at least recognize where you reside and where you live, that somebody says it is non-debatable and non-negotiable. So that was one thing I did, certification. The next thing I say, position yourself through networking. Your network is your network. I know for some of us that are introverted, if you're introverted like myself, and I think I'm kind of borderline between introvert and extrovert. But over the years, my role being a business analyst and being a business architect now and leadership has actually exposed me. When I find myself speaking in a room, people think that, oh, I can't believe you're a shy person. But in person, if you really meet me, or even prior to now, I am a very shy person. With exposure and experience in my role, when I'm on the job, you can see that in me, because of course, as a business analyst, that interpersonal skills is absolutely mandatory. You cannot be a business analyst. I think the whole purpose of the role of a business analyst, you do a lot of talking. Whether you're eliciting requirement, whether you're validating, whether you're walking through, you are talking all day long. So you cannot be a business analyst or a business architect or even a project manager and say you are shy. You cannot. You have to like shelf that at some point while at work and you're like a totally different person. So over the years, I have kind of been able to outgrow that when I'm on the job, you can really tell that I'm a shy person and I will get the job done. So I say being able to talk to people and network is absolutely important for your next career move. Don't be an island. You cannot do things on your own. A lot of the time, people will tell you things like, oh, your work will prove itself or will show itself. Granted, yes, I do encourage people to do very great work, have the credentials, but most importantly, I think opportunities come from knowing people. And when I say knowing people, I'm not talking about backdoor deals or whatever. People who actually value your work and have seen the work you put in and they see the value you bring to the table. They will be the people to speak for you. And these are the two key people I would say. One, your manager. It's very important for your manager to know where you want to be, what next, what you're looking for. But beyond your manager, don't limit yourself to your manager because the danger in that is that sometimes we're humans, believe it or not, your manager could actually see you as a threat or he could see you and be envious of you. Maybe your manager doesn't have an MBA and you have an MBA and you have all these beautiful plans for your life and your manager is just thinking, oh my gosh, if she goes ahead of me, she's going to be even be bigger than I am because I don't have an MBA. Don't let that limit you. So manager is the first person, but the next person, even go above your manager. I always say connect to folks that are above your manager. And that's where we talk about sponsors. The difference between sponsors and mentors. Your mentor is someone who is in the role you want to find yourself in the future. If you want to be a VP, have a VP that is a mentor, and that person will be your go-to person that you talk to about where you want to be. Tell them what you admire about the role they do. And especially if it's somebody you've worked closely with before, find something that connects you to that person. So for example, for me, when I became a business architect, my very first work was, I was thrown on this project. Again, the opportunity came along and I stepped up. That's the word, always stepping up to a role even when you're not ready. So I became a business architect, barely 4 months. We were on this project, replatforming Salesforce, and my boss was the lead business architect on the role. I was a business architect helping him on the role, and he was the one sitting in all these meetings. So the project had 264 stakeholders. We were working with Accenture on this program, a big program, 250 million for 5 years. And because I was a new business architect, I had no idea what I was doing. I was just following my boss's instruction. Barely a month into that project, when we did the kickoff meeting, my boss had a situation at home that his daughter had to be in the hospital and monitored. And it's his only child. So he had to take 6 to 8 weeks off work. My boss's boss, who is also an AVP that we were all reporting at the time, my boss's boss just got married and he had a baby. So it's his first time. So in between just becoming a family man and the wife having a baby, had a C-section recovering. So he's the one carrying the baby and doing all the work. So he also took time off. He did not officially take time off, but he was MIA. He wasn't always present at meetings. So I, being a young business architect, like barely less than 1 year experience, 4 months, I got thrown into this 250 million project that I had no freaking idea what I was doing. But I did not say no. Was I nervous? I was nervous. So we're sitting in this meeting room of 264 stakeholders. Everybody is like VP, SVP from all these different departments, tech, engineering, agile coaches, and all these people. And then they threw me in the middle and they were like, oh, we need business architecture, Catherine. What do you have a capability blueprint? I'm like, what? So I'm thinking to myself, what in God's name is a capability blueprint? Because I've already read some things on YouTube, I knew what it was, but I have never produced one. And I had no idea how to go about producing one. So I'm like, oh my God. They're like, no, we don't have one, but we can get it ready. And then they were like, how long is it going to take? I said, I don't know. Let's take it offline and then we will come back to you. So there's a business architect who was working with me at the time who was much junior. And we were working together. She was terrified. She was asking me, do you know what we're going to do? I'm like, I don't know. It's like, so what are we going to do? I said, we will figure it out. So we got off that call and I messaged my boss because my boss was kind enough, like I could message his number at home because he already told me, if you stumble, call me anytime. I will tell you what to do. I don't think I've ever watched much YouTube videos in my life that day. I watched everything under the sun on business architecture, creating a capability blueprint. There was one woman I stumbled on her video. She's in New Zealand and she's like a practice lead for business architecture. And one of her videos that I saw was like an eye opener. It broke down business architecture, getting engaged in a project and what you need to do step by step. It was a big webinar of people just asking, oh, if I want to get into the role of business architecture, what do you do as a business architecture? It was exactly the video I needed. I digested everything in that video and I started to put notes. I wish there was ChatGPT now. I would have known what to do at the time, but it's not like now that you have added ChatGPT. So I was just watching YouTube videos away. And then I started to make note of what needed to be done. And then I also messaged my manager and then he told me what to do. Long story short, we came up and we created the capability blueprint and we shared it with Accenture. So they were like, okay, so this is what we're going to, and I'm thinking to myself, here is 264 people relying on me that I'm actually supplying the right information for a 250 million project that I had no idea what I was doing. So it was a challenge for me. I'm like, I cannot mess up. There is no option. And anything I do on this project, I have to take accountability and make sure that I am directing these 264 people that are looking up to me in the right direction. So anyways, asking a lot of questions. I asked a lot of questions on that project and it led us to where and I was pretty vocal. That's another thing. When you get the opportunity to shine, shine away. Don't dim your light and don't stumble. Don't let people see through your insecurities. Even when you don't know what the hell you're doing, put on the face and act the part because that is it might be the only opportunity you always only ever have to put yourself on the map and make yourself shine. So I saw that as the opportunity for me to shine. And I was in every meetings that I typically would not be because my boss was away. Meetings that, because there's hierarchy in my company, if it is like SVP meetings for a project that big, it will be people who are VPs and maybe like a senior manager. So the person that should have been in that meeting should have been my boss's boss, who is a VP architecture, but he was away. My boss, who was next as a senior manager, was away. So I was the one that was in all these meetings discussing with the partner from Accenture, discussing with the VP from technology on my team, and discussing with the business sponsors. Long story short, it was the greatest opportunity that I ever had at TD. It actually placed me on the map because that project at the time was like the top 5 project within TD. And it was a very, very good exposure. Did I know everything I was doing? No. Did I make mistakes? Yes, I did. But I took accountability. The time I made mistakes, I'll be like, okay, we thought it was this direction. It's not going that direction anymore. It is this direction. And I was also pretty vocal to let my thoughts know. So at the time, I used that opportunity. There were 2 business sponsors on the project. This business sponsor who was his SVP on the business side and the business sponsor who was the SVP on the technology side. I used that opportunity to get close to both of them. And I started to kind of start because I was holding meetings with them a lot. And I stylishly started to talk of where I would like to be, that one day I would like to head the architecture practice. I love doing business architecture. And that was actually where I got to fall in love with business architecture. So eventually, what I'm saying is networking. I used that opportunity to network, and then I used that opportunity to select mentors. My mentor was the AVP who was heading business architecture at the time, enterprise architecture. And then I had a few sponsors. One of my business sponsors was the technology SVP. The reason is because I happened to find out that he was living around my street. We were taking a train home one day and I saw him on the train. So I found out that he was like my street neighbor down the block somewhere. So we ended up taking the train really frequently and I would chat with him a lot about what I wanted to do. So I gained one sponsor on my side, somebody who could advocate for me in the room when I'm not there. And those are the people you need. Your mentor is not the same thing as your sponsor. Your sponsor usually should be somebody who is probably above your mentor's level, because your mentor is like somebody in the same department where you want to go. But your sponsor should be somebody at the leadership table so that they know your value, they know what you're capable of doing, and they have maybe a bit of understanding of where you want to be, so that when you're not in the room, that is the person that speaks for you. I don't know in your different organizations, but what happens in most organizations here is that at the end of the year, when they are discussing bonuses and promotions, the leadership team sits in a room, and here it's usually like an intense meeting that can be 2, 3 meetings over the course of between that August and October, November, where they make decisions about promotions and firing or hiring. And you will see them bring up names. And it wasn't until I became a senior manager too that I actually understood the process, because my boss would call us in the meeting and ask this random question towards the end of the year. Is there anybody changing in your team? Anybody planning to move? And we would tell them. Is there anybody that you think is due for promotion? Like, do you think anybody on your team is ready for the next move? And then we will give names. And then when we met, can somebody mute themselves? And then when you come up with these names, they will tell you, oh, is either your boss will validate you to say, yes, this person is ready, or they will tell you straight out that, no, I don't think they are ready. Or it could be a discussion of, tell me why you think they are ready. And then we are there talking about this person, and that's the role of your manager. Your manager puts that out there, then your manager's manager will take you to the executive meeting where all that conversation actually happens. At that point, your manager is not there anymore, which is why I say you need beyond your manager. It's not just all the things you tell your manager. You should find at least 2 other levels above your manager of somebody who knows where you want to be, what you have done, and what you bring to the table. So my boss took it to that next level and executive meeting, and they had the executive meeting, and you will hear somebody in the room will bring up your name and say, oh, we're looking, it might be like we have 4 people to promote this year in business banking or whatever the case might be, or in business architecture. And then they bring up 4 to your name. If you don't have a sponsor in the room who even knows about you, your name will never come up. And this is why sometimes people wonder when they think they are due for promotion and it's not happening. Probably because you are not dealing at the right level and you're not keeping that knowledge where you should be sharing it. You need a business sponsor. So your network is your network. Make use of it. If you're introverted, take advantage of, for me, I don't necessarily engage people in like full-blown conversation and things like that because I'm not a social butterfly. But when it comes to work connection, even if it is 1, 2, 3 connections you're able to form the right connections of people who really know. It's people you share something with in common, or you just find something. If you discover that somebody likes you, even if it is 0.001%, take advantage of that, leverage it, form whatever network connection you can form with that person, especially if it's somebody in the leadership team. Also volunteer and participate in like social activities at work. So for example, Black Employee Network is something I like to participate in a lot at work. It helps me to get exposed to senior leadership who are same race as me, who are also like in the same industry that we can sort of connect with. There's also like tech summits that I attend sometimes. So make a time to go for this kind of connecting event. Like I said, these people here, I find that Caucasians talk a lot. They will see you on the elevator and they will talk about their whole life story. Oh, my husband just had cancer last week. Oh, my daughter cannot give birth. Oh, my dog died. And then they talk about all these things. Personally, and I think it's coming from our upbringing, I'm not like that. If I don't know you, I don't dive into having a full-blown conversation. But I feel like in North America, that's their way of connecting with people. They know how to talk a lot. They do that. But for me, I think I connect with the people I can connect with and I take advantage. But when I form a connection, just because I know I'm an introvert and I don't have big circles, when I form a connection, I take it seriously. And I find that one thing that I have in common with that person. And I also make out time to kind of like even coffee chats and stuff and make out time to discuss my career with that person. So if you're in the kitchenette at work and somebody stops you and they're like, oh, Catherine, great work on that project, by the way. That's your opportunity right there. Don't let it slide. seize that opportunity and say, oh yeah, so you worked on that project. I would love to work on something else. Ask them what they're working on. And if it's something that piques your interest, that you feel you guys can bond on and connect with, or you've had experience with, that is your opportunity right there to gain one more mentor or sponsor. Talk to the person about your exposure to that experience. Say, I would love to do this one day, and blah, 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 and things like that. Now, the other thing I also want to talk about in terms of connecting and some of the things that have worked for me, I'm a pretty vocal person at work. And being vocal means speaking your mind, but in a respectful way, by all means. Don't be rude, be respectful, but I'm the kind of person that if I know about something, I will share my thoughts about it. And yes, does it always go well? Maybe not. Has it landed me in trouble sometimes? Yes, it does. But I'm the kind of person that I stand behind honesty. Honesty is one thing that I really appreciate a lot. And the people who really appreciate honesty, they will like to have you in the room. But the people who are shady, which you get a lot sometimes, in fact, 80% of people who are shady are not honest. The people who are not honest, they will not like you. And that's when you know that, okay, it's okay to be different and it's okay not to be liked. Because a mentor once told me that don't expect everyone to like you. You don't sell ice cream. So not everybody will like you. And even if you do sell ice cream, these days people diet and there are people who will not like you. So in all honesty, not everyone will like you. And you need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Because sometimes I feel like that's the only way you can make headway. If you are not, when you see people who are extroverted, they use their strength and it helps them because every room they are in, they know how to interact and get everybody's attention. But if you're introverted, and I'm saying this from experience from some of my mentees that I've helped and even myself, if you're introverted, you are not always the kind of person that maybe gets attention in the room because you're either quiet or you're shy. But the other thing that can help you is knowing the hell out of your stuff so that when you speak, you're speaking knowledge. That gets attention. And that has worked for me. I am I would say I'm a perfectionist. When I'm going into a presentation, I want to know what the hell I'm speaking about. So the night before, you will see me research. I do not want to be presenting and somebody asks me a question and I'm stumbling. It doesn't mean you're going to know everything. But I don't want to be on presentation. You ask me a question and I sound stupid. No. If I don't have answers, I don't have answers. It's different from me sounding like I did not do my homework, if you know what I mean. So standing out by speaking intelligently and knowing your stuff is one of those things that get you noticeable in the room. I always also like to say volunteering to be part of focus groups. So being vocal has actually opened the door for me to be part of a lot of focus group. When I worked with Deloitte, I was part of focus group. When I worked in the insurance industry, in the two banks that I've worked with at the moment, I always get pulled into focus group. The reason is because people know that I can be very blatantly honest. They will tell you, if you're looking to hear the truth, you have to get Catherine onto that committee. I am like that. So sometimes it's like being able to stand for something when people know what you're made of. You don't have to be, everybody can be extroverted and everybody can be introverted. We're all different and variety is the spice of life. But when that one thing that people can know you for, when you're known for that, I think it's also something that makes a difference and it makes people take interest in you. So fast forward, one of the things after being a business architect for a year and a half, I got a promotion to a senior manager. And the reason I'm talking about networking is because I also got that role because of that, because of networking of people that I have talked to. There was a VP that was rolling out a project at TD. And he heard about how vocal I am because my boss told him. And he called me into a focus group and then he was having this tea session every week with individuals to talk about the project, to say, how is this project going? And I gave him my honest feedback. And I said, that being said, I fully support this project. I just think that people don't have enough knowledge to understand what the future is going to bring. And if we can elaborate on that and make them see what the future is, they are going to appreciate it. And then I told him, don't expect results in 1 year because it takes people like several years for a mind shift. So I told him a mindset shift is what is going to make the huge difference on this project for you to start seeing results. I just spoke my truth, but little did I know that this SVP held this so close to his heart that he's like, wow, this person knows what the hell she's talking about. And he kept that in his back pocket. I had that conversation a year later. I just moved on and I had no idea. And then there was a boss that I was reporting to at the time. I interviewed for a role and she said, you did a great interview, but unfortunately, somebody else has done this before and we want her to be on this role. Did I take it personal? No. And that's another thing where I say sometimes you plan things and it doesn't work out. At the time, that was the time that I thought I deserved a senior manager role. And they brought somebody else after all my work, working on this project, 250 million project, and being on what they call quarterly summits. I thought I was due for a senior manager role, but it still did not happen because it just wasn't time. So at the end of the day, I didn't take it personal, and I think the VP was really moved by the way I worked with this person that was hired from outside. And we worked together to kind of move the team forward. And I didn't take it personally. To me, I'm also a Christian. If you're not a Christian, maybe this is not appealing to you. But one thing with me as a Christian is that if I have put my mind to something and I have done my best, even if it doesn't turn out to be the result that I wanted, I just say, God knows it's not time. I don't take it personal. And that's also that mentality that I think is very good to adopt. Just because something did not happen doesn't mean you are the problem. No, it might just be that you are not what they're looking for at the time. It might be that it's not yet time and God is just preparing you for something better. And that's it. So that was one thing. These three different individuals that I had connection with in three different ways. So one was my VP, my boss's boss that I said had a baby and was away. This VP that interviewed for a senior manager business architect role and got somebody else because she saw my attitude. That was one. And then there was the technology AVP person that I worked with that was sponsor on the Salesforce project. These three people were silently my sponsors that I had no idea. And then it was the VP that I had the one-on-one chat with about the project. And I told him, I will be very glad to help you with this project. Like, we just need to get to a place to help people with a change of mindset. So those were four people that silently were kind of like my business sponsor, and I did not know. Fast forward a year later on, when I was minding my business after I came from the 4-month leave that I took, my boss called me and he says, there is a role for senior management with Merchant Solution. And I have talked to everybody. They said there's no better person than Catherine. And the reason is that they were like the VPs for those departments, that the VP is tough to work with. It's very hard to impress. And they need somebody who has a thick skin and who is opinionated, but dedicated to work to be able to work with this team. Apparently, that team at TD at the time, Merchant Solution, they had no business architect. They've not had any exposure to business architecture. So they wanted me to take the same work that I have done for the 250 million project to introduce them to business architecture and do the same thing for this team. I did not apply. I was sitting down on my own when I got called. And eventually when I talked to my boss, I was so surprised to hear that these 4 different people, that when the conversation came up on leadership team, these 4 different people stood up and said, Catherine is the best person for the role. The funny thing at the time was that 2 of them already moved on. One moved to finance, one moved completely to like a different outside TD. And my boss at the time, when she was going into this leadership conversation, thought she needed people's input as to suggestion who they think is the best for the role. So she called up this person that has moved out of TD because she still had their contact. And all the 4 responses she got were like, Catherine is the best person. So this is how having the right connection can work for you, because sometimes we might be putting all our best and be doing everything, but then you're not getting noticed. And then you ask yourself, why am I doing all of this? So hard work is good, but you need to work smart and not work hard. Even while we're working and seeking and getting all the credentials, we want to get the right sponsors, but ultimately God's blessings too as well. So point number 6, say yes, figure it out later. I said this a couple of times now. A lot of the time we're waiting for the perfect time. I gave the example of how I landed the business architect role because somebody was going away because her family member was going through some difficult times. I was not ready, but did we figure it out eventually? Yes. I think that role is one of the roles that I grew faster. I think you learn even faster when you get a role that you were not prepared for. It challenges you. Will you get scared? Yes. I'm not gonna lie, I had sleepless night. That was one of the roles that I barely slept. And at some point, my mom asked me, was like, "Are you sure this role is a good idea? Because now you are even more stressed than the way you were before you took a leave." And I was like, "Yes, I am stressed, but it's only for a short time." Why was I stressed? Because obviously it's a role I've never done before. And I had to figure things out as I go. And I'm telling you, everybody learn on the road, not before, because it's an experience you did not have. How are you going to have the experience? How are you going to learn when you have not even had the experience? You might know about the job or the role. You might have theoretical knowledge of the role, but that does not equal to experience. So a lot of people learn on the road. How you approach it, I think is all that matters. Don't let people see through you and see your struggle. And yes, ask questions and let them know you're growing, but don't show your insecurities. You have to do your research. There's nothing you can learn and find online these days. Also work with people who have been on the roll and they've understood. If you can be humble enough to work closely with people who are on the roll, that was one thing I did too. I worked closely with, there were a team of people, senior business architect at the time that I worked closely with. And it was really nice working with them and gaining that exposure. I would spend my lunchtime sitting down and asking questions before I go to major meetings just to make sure that I get insight from them. So you grow on the roll, you don't grow before that. Number 7, you already have all the skills that you need. Sometimes you're thinking to yourself, oh, maybe I just need to get more degree. Maybe, yes, sometimes you do have to get something else, maybe something else. But there's a lot of transferable skills that you're bringing as a business analyst. For example, like if you're looking into getting into project management, I gave you my example of moving into business architecture. I already had that knowledge of eliciting requirement. And for the most part, as a business architect, you do that too. You just do it at a much bigger level, and I would say much more like management level, because now you are not gathering requirements on stories. You're gathering requirement on business needs at that level. If you look at how requirements are categorized versus business needs and goals, you are asking questions at business needs and asking the business what they need to identify their strategy, define the business problem they are trying to solve. And the only difference is that it's much, much granular at BA level. So you're applying the same skill set of problem solving, asking the right questions and eliciting. You are solving the same problems of communication because you're talking. The only difference now is that learning more to speak at executive level because you're talking to management. You're dealing with a lot of stakeholder management. The only thing now is that instead of being at pod level or at what I would call different team levels and talking to developers, you're doing it more at management level, at SVP level or VP level now, that you have to just learn how to roll up the information you're talking about. So you're not speaking in terms of project and task and lists and activities. You're speaking more from a business outcome perspective. So, but in a nutshell, all the skill sets you have applied today as a business analyst, they are exactly the same skill set you will be applying, just a different audience in general if you're looking to pivot to that next role. So don't ever feel inadequate and think that, oh, I don't have the skill set. The person that is, I don't know, the person that is in that next role you're moving on to doesn't have two heads. They have exactly the, and honestly, sometimes you'll be shocked that even people that you think are in a role, they are not more qualified than you are. They just have the right audacity. That's what I tell people. When you have audacity, you will move. Because a lot of the time we second guess ourselves and it's in your head. You're wondering, oh, maybe I don't have enough. Or maybe I'm an immigrant. Maybe I have an accent. Or maybe I just have, I don't know, I have my degree from Nigeria. It's not here. Or maybe that person has double MBA. No, it's just in your head. And if you have audacity, you will have that audacity to kind of challenge and dare to ask for what you want and what you think you deserve. But you just have to believe it in your head. The next level, I touched on it briefly now, to say thinking at a different level from an outcome perspective instead of task. One of the things I find with working with a lot of my mentees that I work with is that people get buried in speaking from a task and activity level. So let's say, for example, I don't know how other country operates, but here in North America, there is a lot of we call it reviews. So you have bi-weekly reviews with your people manager, basically talking about what you are doing, what is next, any impediments that they can help you move out of the way. And then towards the end of the year, we normally have a year review, basically looking back at everything you've achieved that year. And it's for them to be able to rate you and assess you. Is she ready for the next move? Is she ready for a promotion or whatever the case may be? And a lot of the time, when I listen to people, I find that people come to their performance review and they are listing all these bunch of tasks. Like I helped, I kept this activity log. I helped the developing team to use 20 test cases. I did this. I wrote 250 requirements. And sometimes you just kind of lose your people manager as to how to best support your career because you're busy focusing on tasks and activities instead of actually thinking from an outcome perspective. And what do I mean by outcome? I always recommend that people align everything you're doing. Once the year starts, take an Excel spreadsheet and write every project you work on, list that project, what your role was. And most importantly, find out what that project is all about. A lot of the time, I don't know about now that everyone is agile and scaled agile, but back in the days when things were waterfall, there used to be business cases. And I know some organizations still operate that way. It's a very light touch of business case. They don't really call it business case, but every project has what they call justification for that project. We don't just jump into project because no leadership team is going to give you millions of dollars and say, just go spend this million and wouldn't really want to know what they're getting for it. It is that what they're getting for it. It is the reason you are on that project. And that's what you should be aligning your goals to. Don't think about, I wrote test cases, I did this. Rather, think from that business outcome. Oh, I was great contribution to, I don't know, Salesforce replatforming that saved, that resulted to 90% efficiency, 83% adoption the first year, change our customer engagement, whatever it is, but think from that perspective of business outcomes and business goals, not tasks and activities, because that's the best way to sell yourself. Whenever your people manager can take what you did and align it to the company goal, the company objectives, it's easier for them to sell you at the top for that promotion, for that, I don't know, bonus, for that next big income that you're looking for. But if you're thinking of test cases, leadership doesn't interact in that manner. They can't quantify what you do. The other thing I say is that use numbers, quantify. Like it's easy for people to say, I did this, but when you put numbers, numbers don't lie. When you put numbers to something and everybody, and if you're wondering where you find those information, read company newsletters. Sometimes you get emails about, a project kicking off and newsletter. And I know we're busy in our day-to-day life. Sometimes we disregard all these emails and just whatever and be like, it's not my business. It is your business because that is the easiest way for you to, somebody at the leadership level would have quantified this business or this project to say, this project is contributing X, Y, and Z% to TD's efficiency or whatever. That is the numbers you want to hold on to and track in your Excel spreadsheet. Link what you have done to that, to the business goal, so that it becomes more apparent at leadership level instead of being task and activity. So promotion often goes to the people who are already operating at that next level, which is why I say operate from a business outcome. Don't list tasks and descriptions. Don't give your boss a whole bunch of tasks. If it's only 5 things or 3 things you're able to link your projects to in your performance review, link it to those 3 things, core values and core business objectives and how you have contributed to the organization. And lastly, this is a part that is fairly overlooked. And the North American culture, I can tell you here, people are so lackadaisical in Canada. I'm not even going to lie. And people just, sometimes you see people and it's just as if they roll out in their pajamas and they go to work or whatever they get. And I'm just like, okay, when you are looking to be noticed, and again, I say this for those of us who are introverted. When you're looking to be noticed, you have to try every different tactics that will work after you have put in your credentials and everything you know. And I tell people, one of my bosses that I reported to a long time ago once told me, they said, always dress a level above the level you are right now. Always dress. It says, dress the part. If there is a part you're looking to be in, dress that part. So I take it really personal when I see people come for interview, or the one opportunity they ever have with somebody in the leadership team or somebody in a role that they are kind of eyeing to say, I want to be in this role someday. The one opportunity in a lifetime they have to speak with this person. They go to this meeting and people don't care about how they look, and they are there just wearing this casual, or you're wearing some yoga pants to work and throw a blazer on. No, that is your opportunity to dress the part. Anybody that knows me at work, everywhere I have worked, people always tell me that, oh, when you joined my project, I had to tell my husband I had to go shopping because this person joined my team and she's intimidating. It's not, maybe, I don't know if it's my face, but the look people find, is it a good thing to be intimidating? No, I'm not saying, but in a good way, it shows that you're being noticed. When I enter any room, if I have presentation, even as a BA, when I was a lead BA, every meeting I get into, when I go into a meeting, never go into a meeting where you are the one presenting or facilitating without a blazer. It doesn't cost much. And I'm not talking about, you don't have to break the bank. Whatever decent, if you have a nice tailor that can carve you a nice blazer, have one and wear all the time. I also say colors. Sometimes it's by color. I remember going into one meeting when we were on this 250 million project, and I deliberately picked a bright blue that day because I was the one presenting as a business architect. The moment I stepped into a room, two VPs were like, wow, Catherine, that's a nice color. Yes. Even if everybody there on that team did not know my name that day, they got to know my name at the end of the day, like 200 and something people in that large room for the workshop we were conducting. It is very important. Never, because honestly, in the corporate world, it's not Disney. And I think a lot of the things that people take for granted is like, God knows my heart. God is going to move me to where I'm going. Yes, prayer is good. But even the Bible says work without faith, without work, it's not going to get you the results you're looking for. Yes, we have faith, but we put in the work as well and do the work. You get the connection, you get the credentials, you have the degree, but then you get the sponsors. But then you also make sure you put yourself out there. Don't hide. Don't dim your shine. Don't hide away from, like, contribute whenever and however you think you can contribute to. For volunteer yourself, put yourself out there. Those are the things that will help you for that next role, even after we've done all the work. So never shy away from, I don't know, even if it's like a statement pair of shoes, if you don't like colors. And my sister tells me sometimes that I wear a lot of neutrals, and that's because coming from Deloitte, it's very client facing, so you are very formal. And I think moving into the bank, people were like, whoa, wow, like you're so overdressed. I feel like I was always the overdressed person in the room, but that's because when I worked for Deloitte for 5 years, yes, you can be client facing and not, they look the part. Everybody's in like 3-piece suit or 2-piece suit every day. So you have to be dressed up. So when I joined the bank, people thought I was so much, but for me, I did not shrink it back. I maintained the way I always look because honestly, looking good is good business. The way you are dressed is the way you are dressed, whether you like it or not. When you step into a room and you are looking casual and you don't look the part, people will undermine you. People will underestimate you. But when it adds to confidence. I don't know if anybody's like that, but for me, if I have a presentation in front of 60 executives and stuff, if I don't like my hairstyle, I have to figure it out before the night before and fix that hairstyle. Because it's not just about knowing my content. Knowing my content is one thing. Doing my research is too. But in all honesty, for me too, my look is everything. If I don't like the outfit I picked that morning, so if I have a presentation, I have already thought of my outfits in Sunday. If that presentation is Thursday, I will wear it on Monday and look at everything with the shoes in the mirror, whether I like the way I look. By Wednesday, I will style my hair the night before and see if I like everything all put together. If I don't like it, I am picking something else because everything adds to the confidence for me. I don't want to be in the mirror and I'm looking at myself on that Zoom meeting and and I hate my hairstyle and I'm already feeling somehow. No, I'm also an overthinker. So if you're an overthinker, you probably know all these things. And so I prepare. And I think all of these little things, don't underestimate how all of these things contribute to, you know, yourselves. If you know something that boosts your confidence, if you have to go to the mirror to go do that words of affirmation to yourself, just to get confident before you go present, do what you have to do to get what you have to get, because it's very important at the end of the day. But after being said and done, after all these things, and we have done all these things, I always still say that your entire life could change with just that one move. That one move that you keep second guessing yourself and you keep overthinking. But all you have to do is that you just have to love yourself enough to know that you do deserve more. That's very important, because I feel like sometimes people underestimate themselves and be like, yeah, maybe it's not time, maybe it's not for me. You need to love yourself enough to know you deserve more. You need to believe in yourself enough to know that you are worth it. You're worth much more than where you're at right now. You're worth whatever it is you put your mind at is that next step. And you have to be disciplined enough to put in the work. We talked about the credential. Put in the work, devote time every day instead of scrolling on Instagram and checking TikTok or whatever. I am on Instagram, but I'm on Instagram for like very educative. So you will be shocked how much things you can learn online sometimes. Like I tell you, these days, I'm like, if 2013, a lot of the things that are on social media now, things that you even get on YouTube and whatever, there's Udemy, there's Coursera, there's a whole bunch of like so many resources that you can leverage for free and actually learn a lot of skill set and develop yourself. Leverage it and use it. Be disciplined enough to put in the work, but most importantly, be brave enough to demand more. It is very important, because I feel like sometimes as Black people, we are not brave enough to demand more, which is why I go back to this word of audacity. It is people who have audacity that move. And that one last story that I'm going to give about this point of demanding. When I got promoted to senior manager business architecture at TD, when the boss came to me, they offered me the role as senior business architect. But at the time, I was already almost 5 years at TD. I was done. My goal was to spend only 3 years at TD. I ended up being there 5 years again after Deloitte, and I was like, but the thing was, because I did negotiate a salary increase 2 times, and I actually really got what I wanted. It was good. I also negotiated at some point to see if they could pay part of my MBA, even though they weren't able to give me everything. There was a time I was looking to leave, and my boss was like, I can't afford to lose you. So I negotiated, and they paid part of my MBA. So and that was after the fact. So I got, even though I didn't get how much I paid for my MBA, but at least I got some amount towards that MBA, which was great. So again, it goes back to you knowing what you deserve and asking, because sometimes we don't get because we are not asking. Even the Bible says, ask and you shall receive. So if you're thinking in your head, oh, they are not going to give me, maybe, you don't have anything to lose. Why don't you just ask? The worst that can happen is they will say no. So when I got offered the role, they were like, oh, we're going to give you senior business architect. I was like, no. My foot was already almost out at the time. I was already looking. I've interviewed for a couple of director roles and I was ready to leave. And they were like, and I'm like, if I get this senior business architect role, it's not positioning me for my next role. Okay? Because my eyes was already on VP or AVP role. And once you have all that design in your mind and you know that this is my next step, this is my next, the question is about how am I going to get there? So you might not know the how, but you know the what, and don't get distracted from the what. The what was that after TD 5 years, I thought to myself, my next role with my MBA is director. That was the reason I went for an MBA. And I'm like, to get a director role, I cannot get a senior business architect role. Next role to director or VP is like senior manager. And if I don't get senior manager, anywhere else I'm going, they're going to undermine that senior business architect role. So I told my boss, I'm like, I'm only going to accept this role if it's a senior manager. He's like, oh no, if you don't have people reporting to you, you don't get a senior manager, you don't have this role is an individual contributor, and you're not gonna, I'm like, no. So I went back the day before. They were like, oh, you're given 2 days to either accept the role or decline. That one day I spent in researching. I pulled out all the name of people in the organization that had senior manager role without a direct report. I did my research. Luckily for me, there were 2 in my department. I went back to her and I gave her these names, and I'm like, I just found out what you told me is not true. Basically, there are people in the bank who are senior managers without direct report. So explain to me how this person can get senior manager without direct report and I cannot. She did not have an answer. She's like, oh, let me go back to HR and I'll come back to you. When she came back with my title change, senior manager. And that was when I accepted the role. And I was in that role for like a year and a half before I moved to the role I was in now. When I accepted that role, I was terrified because they were like, oh, the VP is very, very, like they had somebody they were working with before and they were not pleased and the person left. And I was not sure how I was going to make it work. And then sometimes you see some role, you're scared and you're thinking, is this setting me up for success or not? But I kid you not, that was one of the best roles at TD that gave me a lot of exposure. I was exposed to way more than every other business architect because I was working with the POS, so the point of sale system, the merchant solution within TD. And while I was on that role as senior manager, I had the exposure of being part of 2 mergers and acquisition, which is not typical for a business architect role. But while I was there, at first TD acquired West Fargo, and then Pfizer acquired some part of TD Merchant Solution. And I was part of both mergers and acquisition on different ends of the table. So on one hand, my company acquired one. On the other hand, some US company acquired part of my company. So I got to experience what it is to be bought and what it is to buy as a business architect. And it was like my first time ever participating in a mergers and acquisition, which gave me another thing to add to my resume. So back to say yes, figure it out later. Sometimes everything will not unfold while you're accepting a role, but it might turn out to be the best experience you ever have. So if there's one word I'm going to leave you with today, is dare to have audacity. Go ye out there and demand what you deserve. Tokwe, I'll pass it to you. And maybe we're going to have questions and answers.
Wow, thank you so much, Katrine. That was an insightful presentation. In fact, I've equally learned as well. The audacity is it. Be bold to ask for whatever you want. You never can say. You can actually get everything that you ask for.
Good.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Thank you. So I'm sure some people have questions for you. There will be some that would want some clarities as to what you've said so far, or to get directions as to their career life. So here's the time to ask questions. So you could either signify by raising your hand, or you might just want to unmute and then ask your question. So we have one. Okay, Dunjile. All right, go ahead. How are you?
Yeah, I am very well, thank you. And yeah, for me, it's more than just a question. I wanted to say thank you very much for the team that put this session together, and also to Catherine for sharing such, powerful information. Thank you for sharing your own story, which made it very much relevant and attainable, right? And I just wanted to reach out and say I would like to really definitely connect with you. I am finding myself in a position whereby I have acquired the skill, I have acquired the qualifications. I think I am ready for my next move. But I think for me, the issue and the battle really is around the sponsorship. I've got a mentor, and you've touched on a very sensitive point, which unfortunately sometimes we come across as threats to those who are mentoring us. And therefore now we need to go a level higher to the sponsorship. So yeah, I think I would really appreciate if you, based on your availability, just to unpack a bit more on the sponsorship because the networking is going well. I've got mentorship, I've got the credentials, but I think I need a sponsor who will be actually my voice in the rooms that I'm not in. But overall, thank you so much. Everything you spoke about was relevant. And yeah, I look forward to further engagement.
Thank you, Audrey. So like the sponsorship one, yeah, it's to be honest, that's the trickiest part that most people find hard. And the crazy part is that you can't go to somebody and be like, I want you to be my sponsor. I have not done that directly. I don't know if people actually do that directly. My mentor, I did connect with, and I had a coffee chat, and I'm like, she gave her story sometime in one town hall at TD. And I found out that I was so surprised because she happened to be someone who is introverted like me and shy. And when she talked about her career, how she started, I was able to connect. Everything she said on that call, that town hall, I was able to relate and I was shocked. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this person is actually a shy person. She doesn't look it because she's like widely involved in everything with the bank now. You see her everywhere, like, I don't know, everything from donating to like relief life. If there is like flood in some place, she's constantly there and she works with like different teams within TD at the time. So I reached out to her and I'm like, I love the talk at this town hall and things like that. I didn't know you were that kind of person. And I told her my struggles and she's like, okay, I'll work with you. And so once in a while, when I was on the 250 million project, she would give me feedback. If we're in a meeting, once in a while we connect, and you have to reach out and monitor your own growth, because a lot of the time, the people who are like the mentor never really schedule time to say, let me meet with you. I was always the one. I'll reach out and be like, do you have time for coffee? And I would tell her where I'm at. And even when I was ready for my leadership role and looking into senior manager, I told her, confided in her, and I'm like, I'm interested in a senior manager role in business architecture, but my boss currently is a senior manager and he's not moving. And I'm like, if my boss is not moving, I don't see how I can move. Because business architecture is not really a big team. It's small compared to when you look at practices like project management. And she told me, she's like, you don't have to restrict yourself. It's like your boss not moving is not your business. When you're ready, you're ready. However, your boss part is going to figure out, And it's like, the question is, are you ready? And I had to go look at myself and be like, okay. Then she told me the things I would need to be ready. You need to be able to speak in room. You need to be diplomatic. Sometimes business is not just about, she's like, oh, you are very blatantly honest. And she's like, business is all not about you just being honest all the time. There are times that even when you know the full truth, you won't say it. You have to be diplomatic because that's what leadership requires. Knowing when to speak the truth and inform people versus knowing when to not be direct and read the room and kind of not hurt people's feeling or just speak about somebody in an open meeting where everybody is and then the person feels you're judgmental. And she kind of talked on this, and I knew myself that yes, I can be a little brash sometimes, being too honest, and I just speak things. So those were things that I kind of learned from her. In terms of the sponsor, it's you really finding out when you find somebody who praises you for a work you do, not just praise. Let's say you're on a project and then you find this person in the leadership, VP, SVP, and you notice that that person, maybe just one presentation and the person was really sold and now they know the work you do. Find a way to connect with that person and just make yourself available more to them. It might mean volunteering to do some things, and then find a way. So I know teams have potluck, or if you are in a team that they do PI planning, I don't know if your different companies is working on a agile or scale agile, but PI planning is one thing I find that is where leadership, everybody comes for PI planning when they're working on a project. Find time, come early, even if it could be that 5 minutes time of just discussing with whoever is the business sponsor and give a view. I'll give you an example of the technology SVP that I talked to. We were platforming Salesforce. And then one thing we were trying to do is to see whether we want to use Salesforce email or we wanted to use some TD-based, they call it UMail. And we were debating between that, and we weren't really sure. There were some data risks with regards to Salesforce using Salesforce email to email clients, and it will be storing client information. So we decided against it, but I went to do the research. It wasn't supposed to be my job. The folks in technology reporting to this SVP were supposed to be the ones doing this thing. But we were talking back and forth on this in a meeting. And so somebody from data risk management was like, oh, this is risky. Like, if Salesforce is saving that data, we don't want to do that. Like, does anybody know? Nobody knew. I took it on myself, and Salesforce offers all these different modules that you can take for free. It's one reason I love Salesforce. In fact, I tell anybody who is looking into get into business analysis as a career that just having access to Salesforce and doing their free studies is probably like your first way to get into business analysis if you want to. If you can learn their module and maybe just have all those, they give you badges, collect badges. I used to collect badges when I had time, and for free. You log in, you don't even have to belong to any organization. I love that about Salesforce. You can learn a lot about Salesforce. I have friends who got like really great contract job of like 5 figures just from learning Salesforce when they moved to this country, and that was their only thing they leveraged to get into business analysis in this country, and they landed like really great job. So I'm very passionate when I speak about Salesforce. Anyways, I learned about it and I took some modules, and I just went to look into how to like the email and how it works. And I came back with this research. I just volunteered myself, and I came back and I sent it and presented it to the team, and this SVP technology, so it's like, wow, it's like, yeah, we're definitely not doing this. Like, Catherine, thank you for doing that. And then he sent an email, and that email got forwarded around for people to know that no, we weren't doing it. And I used that opportunity, one PI planning, to talk to you, and I'm like, yeah, other than this email thing, I also found out that we were doing a lot of customization to Salesforce instead of using things out of the box. Customization in business architecture, we do not like it, because when you customize system to a certain extent, managing that system becomes hard. And then the system is not exactly protected from some of the cybersecurity risks that is supposed to be protected from anymore, because you have customized it beyond what it was actually designed to do. So I pointed it out to him. I was taking a log of all the things that the developing team were customizing. And I came to him, I'm like, I found that we are doing this. This is not good. And in business architecture, we really don't like customizing that. Is there a way you can talk to your team? What can we do to make sure we limit the number of customization? That was a second opportunity for him to notice me, and he was like, wow, I've never really thought about it. So he put together a meeting, and he was like, got all the developing team and the solution engineer, and they asked them, and they were like, is anybody keeping track of all the things we are customizing for this application? They were like, no. So we were like, okay, so how are we going to know in the future if Salesforce is supposed to be doing some kind of servicing for us, and how are we going to know what has been changed from the original or not? That was the day they started to track our customization. Again, something that even people, I am not tech, I'm business architect in between business, and even people that were in tech did not know they were supposed to be doing this, which is why I say, don't ever think just because somebody's been in a role for donkey years, they know better than you. Sometimes it's just common sense that somebody is not thinking about these things, and if it comes quickly to you, sometimes you don't need a degree. Don't be scared to voice your opinion. Say that, and you'll be shocked that you might be saving the whole project, something that nobody thought about. Just because somebody is an SVP doesn't mean they know everything. That was how I gained that man's attention, and he got to know me. Then I found out that we were living around the same street. That was how he became my sponsor. I never had any conversation to sit down and be like, I want you to be my sponsor, but it was somebody that I saw the loophole to volunteer my services, and then I saw the opportunity for him to really know what I knew and what I was capable of offering. Any other questions?
Do we have any other question? There is Taiwo here. Said, thank you so much. Is it okay to connect with you on LinkedIn, please?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. All right. Thank you. More questions for Catherine?
Please, what's your name on LinkedIn?
Catherine A. It says Catherine A. MBA, just the way we had it in the picture. Catherine A. MBA.
So it's Catherine A,
Yeah,
right?
Catherine A.
Catherine
Yeah.
A. Dot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Catherine A. If you search for Catherine A, it will pop up.
Okay. Any other question?
Okay, while I don't have a question, I just want to say thank you. I'm Ramat.
Questions?
I don't have a question. Can I be heard?
Yes, I can hear
Okay.
you.
All right. I just want to say thank you so much, Catherine, for sharing this insightful journey. Like, I learned a whole lot, and I took a lot of lessons. I don't have any question. I just want to say thank you. This is very inspiring. Thanks a lot.
I also want to say that I do offer resume structuring and interview coaching. I think I put my website on the first page there that I share, but I can also share for this team, anybody that attended this, if anybody needs like a quick overview of their resume just to take a look and say, okay, I'm ready for this next move. This is what I'm looking at. Can you help me with my resume? I'm okay to offer that service between now and at least in the next 2 weeks. So if there is anything like that you're looking for, feel free to reach out. I'm also always willing to reach out on LinkedIn, to be honest. Like even here, I've had people reach out to me to just want a coffee chat because they're looking at their next move and they want to chat with someone. Feel free to reach out. Even if it's busy, I'll work at the time. If it's not in immediate, we can talk about scheduling a time that works for you for us to chat about it. But other than
Right.
that,
There is
sorry, go ahead.
Nene, please go ahead. Nene, go ahead with your question.
Sorry, this is a colleague, but I want to ask a question. I want to know how you got into Deloitte. Basically, I want to know how to get into all these top organizations because it seems like the job board is not really working.
That's a good question. The job board now, but the job board is still what I use. So I would say, so my current role, I'm just been in my current role for 2 months. And I used to use job boards in the past. I used job boards when I got into TD. I used job board when I got into Deloitte, to be honest with you, indeed. Those were the two job boards that I used when I got to Deloitte and TD. And I don't move anyhow. I'm very strategic. One thing I'm going to say is that other than using the job board, go to the company website directly. When you find, indeed, there's a lot of, by the time you get on Indeed and some of these job boards, the job is probably already had like 1,000 applicants. And just out of curiosity, like where are you located? Are you in Nigeria or you are here in Toronto?
Yes, I'm in Nigeria.
Yeah. So the job, I don't know how the job boards in Nigeria work, but I would suggest to use LinkedIn. LinkedIn, when you log on to LinkedIn, LinkedIn can, depending on what you have. So for me, when I'm looking for a job, I do subscribe to LinkedIn Premium. And Premium, once a job posting comes out, put in that job, like the few job titles that you're looking for. And so once there is an opening, it will pop it up in your LinkedIn profile, at least job view, for you to be able to view those jobs. And at least most of the time, if you have Premium, it also tells you how many applicants have applied. Personally, if you already see that this job is been posted beyond 24 hours, don't waste your time. Because here in Toronto, I don't know how Nigeria is. Here in Toronto, the market is like so saturated that I have seen jobs that I was on the train coming from work. And by the time, just between my 1 hour to 50 minutes train trip till I got home, that job already had 1,000 applicants. For some, that kind of a job, you don't stand a chance. I'm not going to lie, because when I was doing recruiting, once it's beyond certain number, we don't even look at all the resume. So it's very important to target an opportunity as soon as it comes out. And I'm going to give you an example. When I got Deloitte role, After my four-month training boot camp for business analysis, I stayed up late. That's another thing I'm going to tell you. When you are on LinkedIn, whether you subscribe to their premium or you're using basic, most jobs get posted at night. So for LinkedIn, Sundays, Saturdays, the recruiters are there. They are posting all this posting. Make sure you target something. When you're checking LinkedIn, it will tell you this post only has 3 applicants or it's just been posted in the last 31 minutes or something. That is the type of job you want to aim for. If you want to aim for something that is still within the last few minutes posted, and at least you are the first top 20 applicants. If you are not part of that, a lot of the time, so many people have already applied. When I applied to Deloitte, the position was posted on a Sunday. I was on maternity leave. My twins woke up and I woke up to feed them. It was at 2 a.m. I used to have my laptop open and I would just have all the job boards open. It wasn't LinkedIn. It was Indeed at the time. I checked on Indeed and it was saying, I just saw it on Indeed, just posted 26 minutes. No, but I don't know if anybody has applied because it wasn't LinkedIn. So I couldn't see. Indeed doesn't show you how many applicants, but I could see it was 26 minutes. Immediately I went on it and I applied 2 a.m. So even the timing makes a difference because if you are up 2 a.m. looking for something, as a recruiter, if I see that, I know that this person wants it so bad. So I kid you not. In Canada, Canada has this rule that you can't call anybody before 9 a.m. in the morning, at least an organization, unless if it's your family member. So if a company is going to call you, they're not going to call anything earlier than 9 a.m. in the morning because you can sue them. That's literally like constituting disturbance. So, but this person, the recruiter called me 10 minutes to 9 in the morning. So to me, it's like they saw my resume and they were really waiting. She was just waiting for that 9 o'clock to call. So as soon as I was up in the morning feeding the kids, and then I saw the call coming, and the person told me they were calling from Deloitte, and I was, of course, ecstatic. I was so happy because it's something that I have been looking for and I've been waiting for, and that was how I got the Deloitte job. So targeting and making sure that at least you're one of the first applicant. Don't go for anything that is already like a zillion people have applied already. The chances of them getting to your resume is gets slimmer and slimmer. And then if there is specific companies that you are interested in, if something gets posted on the job board, don't rely on the job board alone. What I hate about the job board sometimes is that majority of them is probably recruiters who are also putting it on there or whatever. Go on the company website by themselves directly. So top companies that you're interested in, I will say be dedicated, like have them bookmarked. I was like that and I still do. Personally, my goal within Canada, I have never worked for any company that is not, my goal is usually like Fortune 500, Fortune 100, Big 4, Big 5. And I don't apply to where I'm not interested in. Think about it. And I've said this before during one of my presentations. So I was presenting to a team of people where I volunteer. And I mentioned it to them because somebody was asking me, why do I use, what do you call this in AI apply? Now people use AI apply and they just apply to a vast majority of jobs. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes we are in different places in our lives. If you're looking to just get a job and get by and pay your bills, that's fine. Use AI apply, you're going to get all the application and whatever. But if your goal is, I want this company XYZ, because I don't want anything less than that. I want reputable company, then focus on the reputable company. It might take some time, but you will get there because you know what? When I worked with recruiters, one thing, companies appreciate people. There are names that we keep saying every year. Whenever there's a position, you see this person's resume and you see it, and they keep you in their database. The way it seems to a company is almost like dating. When you go on dating app or even if you're just courting someone, your persistency and how consistent you are sometimes can make that person to change your mind, if you know what I mean. The same thing happens with recruiting. If you like that company, you bookmark, and anytime they have a position you're applying, one day you will get that call you're looking for. And that was me with Deloitte and KPMG. I had the companies that I had in mind bookmark. When I got TD, it was the same thing. I had the top banks in Canada bookmark that I wanted. When I got this role with CIBC, it was the same thing. Once you know what you're looking for, just bookmark that company and keep checking their website, their career pages, and see what they have available. It's actually your best bet than going on job boards, because job boards, that way, as soon as the company posts it, sometimes you're seeing it before it even gets to the job board. So, and then what you can do, look on your LinkedIn, find somebody you know. Chances are sometimes you know someone who is connected on your LinkedIn. Let's say I'm looking at working for BMO Bank in Canada here, for example. Once I've seen that job post on Bank of Montreal website, I will go on my LinkedIn and find any of my contact that I feel is working with that company. You would apply, and then you reach out to that person and say, by the way, I am applying. Would you mind if you recommend me? A lot of organizations here in Canada give what they call a bonus if you can recommend somebody from outside. Like if they have a posting and you recommend somebody for the position. When I was working in an insurance company, I actually got $1,000 bonus because I recommended one of my friends that the company ended up hiring, and they will pay that. They pay it in the first 3 months, provided that person stays with that company for the first 3 months. So after my friend stayed for 3 months, I got that $1,000 bonus, and I was paid for it. I don't know if Nigeria works that way, but here, if they do work that way, you can. So it's easier for somebody on your LinkedIn to say, okay, I'm okay to recommend you. All they have to do is that you tell them they are not submitting resume for you. You will still go through the normal process of application, but at least now you have somebody internally that can speak for you. And you can reach out to a few people. Some people will not respond, to be honest with you. I've done that, and some people don't respond. But if somebody is good enough to oblige you and they respond, you have nothing to lose. The worst thing that will happen is that the person will not respond, or they will say no. But if they do say yes, here you have it. Then you have somebody linking you up. So, but when I did Deloitte, I honestly didn't reach out to anybody internally. I just applied. But I would say have a good resume, which again, why I'm saying I am offering you that opportunity, because I know what it is. Your resume is the first introduction ever a company has to you. And I find that a lot of the time people have resume that is either all over the place or is not well structured for the role they are looking for. Don't be jack of all trades with your resume describing a whole bunch of stuff, because sometimes we are like, oh, let's just cast our net and whatever it catches and gets. And so now we are listing PSW, we are listing dentistry, we are listing, meanwhile, we're looking to have BA job. If all of these things you can bring together, how this is related to the BA job you're looking for, you don't necessarily need to list all these laundry list of experiences, unless if there is like transferable skills that you can map to this new role that you're getting. So I would say your resume is the first thing that actually introduces you. It's almost like the license plates to your car. You have to make sure the resume is pretty. You have to make sure the resume actually sells you and sells your brand to at least get that company's attention first. Then we talk about interview. I hope that answers your question. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
All right, so we have one more, and I think this will be the last. Kenny Grace, please go ahead and ask your question.
All right. Hello, sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for the insightful session once again. I really appreciate this. It means so much to me. And I really got a lot. And please, I want to ask the resume offer you are giving, are we to reach out on LinkedIn, and then how much are we paying for that? Is there
I'm
is
offering this for free. I'm offering the resume for free. For anybody who attended this program, I'm offering that resume to you for free. So if you want a resume structuring, feel free to reach out, and I'll put my email in here and you can send the resume, and I can take a look for you and let you know.
Wow. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
All right, so our time is far spent. Thank you so much, Catherine. It's been an insightful delivery, and also thank you for the advantage. So we look forward to the time we'll bring you on board, and then you'll be able to talk about business analysis versus business architecture. All right,
Okay.
great. All right, so it seems you're trying to put something on the chat box for everybody, right?
Ye- Hello, please. I've been raising my hand.
All right, Tosin, go ahead.
Seven. Thank you. I wanted to ask, Catherine, from your perspective, for someone that is trying to pivot into a business analysis role, what do recruiters look at? Is it more of certification, maybe like CBAB, or experiences?
So for business analysis role, I would say they don't even look at CIBA from the onset. I would say I have coached about 32 people here that actually, I feel like once I got a business analyst job, I was almost like a preacher, like screaming it on the rooftop because I literally went from, so my job as a quality analyst at the call center here, when I was working as a quality analyst in testing, I went from a salary of like $43,000 to like literally to five figures when I joined Deloitte. So you can imagine my excitement. I went from like telling all of my friends and anybody else who cares to listen. In fact, there's one of my friends at the time that after 1 year of becoming a business analyst, I told her about it. She was a teacher working on this teaching the district school board here. Nothing, she had like she went to University of Sonsuka. I can't remember what she studied, but something education or something. So she was teaching here. A year after I got my role as a business analyst, I told her about the business analyst role and she was looking everywhere. She went to take the same boot camp I took. She tried her best. You will not believe it. I have been, how many years now? It's like what? Almost 19 years in my career. And that friend just got a business analyst role with the government here in Ontario, federal government, a year and a half ago. So she's only a year and a half on the job. My point is, she had no experience. She did not even take any certification like me. It was just the boot camp she used to get the job. And I got the job with the boot camp as well, too. It was only after I got the job that I went to U of T to actually take a formal education. The boot camp was not a formal education. It's just some folks that came together and they were teaching business. And so they are not like an accredited education organization that will give you a certificate. So I didn't have anything to even show for it when I became a business analyst. It was after that Deloitte gave me some money. I was able to do U of T and did a formal training and did Harvard and did all. So all of my Scrum Master and all, in fact, if you look at my resume, my Scrum Master and whatever, all of that came in 2022, 21. It was way after. I had already been a business analyst way long. So my experience for Deloitte helped me with other roles pretty much. But prior to that, I just kind of took transferable skills of my work as a frontline underwriter and doing testing. So when I was a frontline underwriter, everything I did with auto insurance company was not really relevant to being at Deloitte. So the only skill set I took, I focused more on the testing. So when I actually joined Deloitte, my first few roles were more of writing test cases and testing. I did a bunch of testing. So that was the main transferable skills. And then I kind of build on eliciting requirements and sitting in calls with other BAs on my own to understand. So I would say, maybe give me an example. What do you do right now? What did you study in school? And I can give that as an example to this group of how you can pivot and kind of take your transferable skills and get into BA role.
Okay, I studied accounting and I work as a finance officer.
Fantastic. So, do you know what you can do as a BA with accounting background? Because it's not even common. So finance, I'm not gonna lie, finance is one one area, industry that I think you can really make it a lot and make a lot of money, because regardless of what business operation or what business you're operating, everybody needs finance. So having that accounting background can definitely help you as a business analyst. It would be nice to find like financial institution and any organization so for you, focus on finding a company that is maybe focused on accounting or financial institution. You get a BA role in a finance department, for example, or anything like a bank, you will understand how finances work and stuff. So it makes it easier for you to elicit requirement as a business analyst. I think the only thing that you will be needing to understand is understand that business process. And let me tell you, to become a business analyst, it's about knowing how to ask questions, being curious. Anybody can be a business analyst. That's one thing I say. Have a degree for start, and the rest of it, a lot of it is common sense. Yes, there are things that with CBAP certification, they will teach you, which you can gain experience in the more you do, you work on the job and the more time you spend on the role. But to start first, you need to be curious. If you're a curious person, when you're a business analyst, they put you on the project. The one good thing I tell people about business analysis is that when you're put on a project, the main reason for that project is that nobody knows what the hell they are doing. We are all just figuring it out. So you find out that at the beginning of a project, everything is ambiguous, because maybe we want to build something, but what we want to build is here. We are starting from here. Nobody knows how we want to get from here to here. What we know is that we want to get here. So it is the business analyst, project manager, everybody starts to work together, and gradually you start to unravel that web of a whole bunch of ambiguous information that nobody knows. And it's all about how well you can ask questions. So it makes it really easy for you to be on the roll, because it's like the main purpose of you existing as a BA is asking the questions so that you can present it to business, and then they will understand how they will want to get from here to here. But the good part is that you're not doing it by yourself. You're working with technology, you're working with developers. So it's you're working with project manager or scrum master, depending on whether you're operating agile or not. And it's all about you knowing who to ask and really asking all these questions once the key stakeholders have been identified and you know all these people. So you don't need much to start as a business analyst. You get into an entry role there, I would say make best friends with people who are already existing BAs, be observant, be willing and be humble enough to ask questions. And honestly, within 1 year on the role, you will do great. My friend has been like 1 year on it now. When she first started, she would call me, we would talk about it, and she was like so excited moving from a teaching job that was just like 40,000 to her earning 5 figures now. Even with the government, like she got a really good job starting, and that's her first business analyst role whatsoever. But she's doing well on the job now. And the thing is that she's finding that a lot of the things that we talked about and some of the things she had during her training, once you start getting into meeting, you're going to be like, oh, wow, so this is what it means to have JAT session. Oh, wow, this is what it means to have workshop. And you will start to piece the pieces together, and you will start to take your theoretical knowledge and make it become practical, because now you're actually participating in these meetings and you are being part of this meeting or even leading the meetings. And again, like I said, YouTube. I did a lot of YouTube. If I have anything, if I get added on a new project, I come home and research and say, how do you interact with stakeholders on this? How do you find out this? And it helps me prepare for meetings, at least my first year of getting that balance and being able to get more comfortable on the role. And it's not just BA. Any role is any role. Just picture that any role you get into, as long as you are new on that role, there's going to be that moment where you are starting to understand and you gain confidence. But by the time you spend 1 year as a BA, trust me, you will be fine. Does that answer your question?
So much.
Yeah. If you find something and you're looking for how to kind of like scale your resume to make it presentable and be a role, yeah. Like if you find places where you can volunteer. Suggest where you can do be a role. I always say too, like on your resume, maybe find roles that you did in the past. It also helps you. find roles that you did in the past, try and put it in a BA kind of way, even if it means you putting it somehow and say, I work closely with this team to gather requirements or to find the research information. BA does a wide range of, we research, we do analysis, we facilitate workshop and stuff. So any of these skill set that you have used in any capacity in the past, you can position it as transferable skills that you're actually bringing into BA role. Just look for how you can paint that in a BA role and say, I have held facilitation in the past. I'll be able to facilitate chat sessions and workshop, or I have done this in this role. I'll be able to do this and manage stakeholders in this role, or do testing, or do researches. Any other question? If there is no other question, talk with you wanna
All
call it a
right.
day?
Thank you. Thank you. I can say
Yeah.
thank you. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Katrine. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Thank you
much,
very much for having
Katrine.
me.
You've done well for us.
Hello.
Yeah,
Hello.
for IDA Nigeria as well.
I think someone
Zainab,
is talking.
please, I think we've actually gone. Hello, can you hear me? Zainab? So whatever your question is, please, can you maybe you can just send it to Katrine through LinkedIn. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's okay by me.
All right. So yes, thank you, Katrine. You've shared a whole lot of nuggets that can save careers in the future, and a whole lot, that we can soak in and work with, along the line. So like I said the other time, there were some insightful things you said about business analysis and the business architecture. So sometimes probably before the end of the year, would like you to come speak to the community on that as well, right? I hope that's fine by you.
Anytime, talk, but feel free to
All
let me
right,
know
great.
anytime. I'm more than happy to share
Great.
knowledge anytime. All right.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, thank
So
you
at
so
this
much.
juncture, this is where we're going to end the session. Bye, everyone. Thank you for participating, taking time out to be part of this program. I'm sure you greatly enjoyed it. So, bye. See you all another time.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi, thank